All right, so our next guest believes with respect to the Russia probe, there have been some issues with the interpretation of the criminal code, referring to treason arguments, for example, which he has called bizarre and dangerous, given what we know. Here now, constitutional law attorney and George Washington law professor, Jonathan Turley. Good to see you here tonight, sir. I want to start with this developing story that we are following that has changed even in the last 5 minutes, because a few moments ago, a story was crossing that said that there was a second undisclosed meeting that President Trump had during the G20 summit in Germany with Vladimir Putin. The original story that it was behind closed doors and it only had one translator, the Russian translator. Now the White House, just moments ago, is saying that is incorrect and that the second previously undisclosed meeting was at the dinner where Melania was seated next to President Putin, and President Trump got up from his chair and his translator, went over to where they were standing and spoke with them for some period of time. I don't know the length of that time as of yet. Is there any issue with that? Legally, politically is another story.
No, I think it does reflect the level of hyperventilation we have in Washington now. The story broke, and all of a sudden there's questions of, well, there's more undisclosed meetings. These were two world leaders at the G20 meeting. It was a meeting of world leaders. The fact that they had these types of meetings, whether they were public or not, is not surprising. It's certainly not evidence of any crime. I think the problem is that people are now looking through this glass darkly. Whenever they see any type of new meeting, they see evidence of collusion, or they see what they want to see. Prosecutions require something more. I mean, you need to, first of all, define a crime. Collusion is not a crime under the code. When you talk about things like Donald Trump Jr., people are so eager to say, well, now we have a crime here, that they fail to actually define it. And people, I don't think, want to be in a world where a meeting like that could be treason. People have said this is prima facie evidence of treason. Would you want to be in a country where treason was broadly defined in that way? The framers defined treason very narrowly because they lived in a country where people were accused of being traitors because they were unpopular or they were political opponents. There are serious things to investigate here, but you don't help that by concluding that there's a strong evidence of a crime without a defined crime.
So in terms of the investigation, we know that Robert Mueller now wants to speak to all the people that were in the room with Donald Trump Jr. His investigation is proceeding, and when you boil it down to the three potential crimes, you've got obstruction of justice in the Comey meeting, you've got collusion potentially in this Donald Trump Jr. meeting. They've been looking for it in a number of places, but this is where they think that they may have found it. And you have treason, which you just mentioned, which has also been brought up by even Tim Kaine, senator from Virginia. Can this process proceed in a legal way and find a true answer that you think will be satisfying in this environment?
I think it can, but people need to be a little more responsible. First of all, they can look for collusion, and they'll probably find it. That by saying, I love it, when people say a bunch of Russian government lawyers want to give you information, that sounds a lot like a willingness to collude. But that doesn't happen to be a crime under the criminal code. Now, if people refer to collusion as conspiracy, that's a crime, but it's conspiracy to do what? And people are saying that, well, they were trying to conspire to defraud the government and that type of thing. We've never seen cases where it was extended that broadly. And I have an article out in The Hill today where I say, look, each of these claims that people are making on the evidence as they exist now would grotesquely extend the criminal code. And that's a dangerous thing. You know, people are so eager to bag a Trump that they're willing to take these crimes and take them well beyond their legal moorings.
Fascinating. Jonathan Turley, always good to have your sobering and realistic view as we plod through this story. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pleasure.